When we last left off here, Megatron had successfully captured Arachnid, well, due to her own actions of trying to save Orion Pax, and, well, ended up getting one of his oldest friends back as well. And with Arachnid as a bargaining chip, it just kinda doesn't look good for the Autobots, but they do have a little bit of hope. Optimus entrusted the key to Vector Sigma to Balerion, and right now, he has to be the one to bring everyone together. Let's talk about it. Our story takes place, or our story continues, on the Decepticon warship, where Arachnid has just been put in her cell, obviously chained up, kind of like Agent Fowler was on the Decepticon warship, but Arachnid is just fully restrained. And while Megatron or Skybite, well, I would definitely say Skybite is the one, or Rampage, nah, let's actually have that, considering that dude is sadistic, is the one who wants to torture her. Megatron ultimately stops him, saying that if he lays a finger on her, they're going to incur the wrath of that dragon. So it's best for right now we leave her be, and maybe use her as a bargaining chip should things get, oh, I don't know, hairy. So right now, Rampage does have to contain his urges to torture the likes of Arachnid. But meanwhile, Orion is convinced by Megatron that the Autobots are, again, the bad guys, with him instead stating that Balerion being the warlord instead of Ratchet, and pretty much showing footage of Balerion even throughout the ages terrorizing, or, quoting, terrorizing the likes of humanity. Doesn't pay off when your history is burning down kingdoms of corrupt kings and, dictators and stuff like that, and can just easily be twisted into, well, an alternate narrative, right? Yeah, sucks now, doesn't it? But overall, I do think that Megatron would be able to convince Optimus or convince Orion here to actually help him out. And believe it or not, I actually think this would work out for Megatron's own benefit. Now, with Orion Pax on his side, he also decrypts the Iacon, data banks and stuff like that. So, believe it or not, that actually begins a bit earlier. Meanwhile, the Autobots are trying to find a way to get to Vector Sigma, trying to find their way back to Cybertron. And with Ratchet in critical condition, this means that they really don't have a lot of brain power, at least at the moment. However, this is where they actually think to themselves, what if they interrogate a Viacon? To which this is where they're looking like, okay, go on, start cooking. And this is where RC simply suggests that, look, it may not be our best option, or may be a way that possibly corrupts or compromises their ideals, but right now they're in a tough situation. They're in a situation to where they need to find a way to get Optimus back. And, well, a Viacon may be their best bet. So, this is where Balerion leads Depth Charge, Strongarm, RC, and Bulkhead, leaving Bumblebee back at the base so that he can, monitor Ratchet and take care of him just in case. And they pretty much go out to get a Decepticon. Any Decepticon will do. It does not matter to them. And when they actually find the Viacon, they actually begin interrogating him. And, well, I guess you could say they kind of use some of Ratchet's methods, but then again, they do keep it in line with what the Autobots would normally be capable of doing. So basically, they kind of use the synthetic energon Ratchet method, where they do torch his face, or at least Depth Charge is the one to do it, because he is the more aggressive and unruly one of the group. So this means that they do find out about Megatron's secondary space bridge, and, well, unfortunately, they can't keep the Viacon alive, because we know he gonna snitch. So, yeah, they gotta kill him. Yeah, they gotta do that, unfortunately. Or, this is where Balerion proposes a different alternative. He rips his voice box out. Yeah, I know, kind of cruel and stuff like that, but he does rip the Viacon's voice box out and crushes it, kind of just leaving him there in a more crippled like state to where he won't be able to say anything to Megatron anytime soon. So unfortunately for that Viacon, he gets the bumblebee treatment. I know, crazy, but I kind of want to show how desperate the Autobots are to kind of get Optimus back at this moment. And so, without Starscream also being there to kind of like, give them a leg up because he's, out and about doing his own thing with the synthetic energon formula that Ratchet tried to give him in order to, spare the human lives, even though it did technically work in a Starscream-like way. It's still the fact that, well, Starscream's kind of out there and just living his best life, at least for the moment. All right, at least for the moment. So, believe it or not, this does wind up getting the Autobots the coordinates to the space bridge, and Balerion is obviously the one to go, with the team that actually faces off against Megatron being Depth Charge, RC, Bulkhead, and Bumblebee. I'm going to have RC be the one to take a shift and be with Ratchet at the moment, albeit she would rather prefer herself out on the battlefield, understanding that Ratchet is just in no way, shape, or form capable of, being even up at the moment. It does make her, feel bad, and she does stay with him. So, obviously she does take the shift willingly. So this is where we get Megatron versus the Autobots. But let's talk about what's been happening on the warship, right? Arachnid has been thinking. She's overhearing everything. The Viacons chatter about Orion packs in the data area and stuff like that, decrypting the Iacon coordinates. And, well, Arachnid understands that she can get out, but this was probably the only time she can, as when she hears Megatron saying that he'll deal with the Autobots himself, this is where she chooses the opportunity to use her acid spit and to melt her chains. So when she clatters to the floor, the Viacons actually come in, but she's already on the ceiling and, well, webs them up and just snuffs out their sparks. Again, she still has her ruthless edge to her that, in all honesty, just... let's be real, that's not going anywhere anytime soon. It's just happy that they're on the Autobot side, or at least those ruthless edges are just on the Autobot side for now, I guess. So, believe it or not, she makes her way towards Optimus, sneaking around and taking out any Decepticons that honestly just get in her way. So, in all honesty, it's really easier for her to get to Optimus. But here's the thing. She has to convince him. As while it may be the worst thing she has ever had to admit, right? I think it's actually funny that she has to admit that she joined the Autobot cause because they actually are the ones that treated her like another being, They treated her like she was important, like she was special, The Decepticon cause doesn't do that. They don't see people as their own individuals. They see them as soldiers and nothing more. And this actually gets Orion to think. Gets him to actually hear her out. And, well, it doesn't take him long to be convinced that, yeah, Megatron has been a little bit off. So... it doesn't take him very long to kind of be convinced to join Arachnid and thus joining the Autobot side. So by the time he actually goes to be with the rest of the Autobots, he finds out that Optimus, or that Balerion, and Megatron are engaged in a heated battle, with them both pretty much pushing each other to their limits before Balerion uses a fireball and Megatron counters with an energon blast, which causes a huge explosion that knocks both of them back. However, with Orion being there, he sees that this is his opportunity to step up, his opportunity to be the prime that everyone thinks he is, and just gets promptly one-tapped by Megatron. To which Arachnid utilizes this opportunity to web up Megatron the best that she can. And actually, this works because Megatron is off-guarded at the moment. And this is also where Balerion is able to give Optimus the full key to Vector Sigma, thus allowing him to, well, get his memories back. But unfortunately, they do make a quick retreat because as of right now, they are just still simply outmatched by the upgraded Sharkticon Megatron minus Balerion. But right now, they do need to get everyone out of here as well. They kind of need to inform how Ratchet's condition is doing. And well, the Autobots ultimately do go back to base, with Balerion hitting Megatron with a flurry of fireballs and pretty much just dipping out of there, kind of just leaving Megatron with some burn marks on his chest and just kind of, obviously angered at the fact that he just lost Orion Pax. So obviously when Megatron gets back onto the ship, everybody's in trouble. Let's just be real here. Everybody is in trouble. They are on thin ice at the moment here, because how the heck did they let Arachnid escape? To which this is where Skyblight simply interjects that they overestimated or underestimated her capabilities, Lord Megatron. But before Skyblight can even get the rest of it out, Megatron simply slaps him across the room and calls him utterly useless, calls everyone utterly useless. And unfortunately right now, they have to figure out how to decode the next Iacon data coordinates. To which this is where Soundwave simply shows that he can handle it. And so Megatron puts Soundwave on the rest of the Iacon databanks a lot earlier in this timeline. Now, let's talk about the next episode here, that being Operation Bumblebee. That goes pretty much the same as it does in the beginning, except one thing. With Balerion there and Depth Charge, they're able to hold off Megatron along with Optimus so that Bumblebee can pull that slick maneuver a lot easier and a lot safer to actually get the Spark Extractor, with the finishing move being Balerion causing a whole hurricane to knock Megatron back into his own ground bridge. So yeah, Autobots lose that. Now, the next episode we do have to talk about... let's talk about the rest of Operation Bumblebee, right? So, Bumblebee does lose his T-Cog because Starscream is running around and about. Now, here's actually the difference in this timeline. Starscream doesn't get his T-Cog stolen. No, he doesn't. And I actually do think that this is important because he is a lot more formidable, because now he is running on synthetic energon. And so Bumblebee getting his T-Cog back is a lot more difficult in this timeline. However, there is an alternative. When the Autobots actually go to investigate the next relic, that being the Fortress Solaris Prime, the Autobots that go are Optimus, Strongarm, RC, and Balerion. Those are the ones to go. And so this means Bulkhead, RC, and Arachnid, along with Bumblebee, are the ones to get the T-Cog back. So this kind of puts Arachnid in the Autobots' good graces a lot more. And the fact that, well, Starscream is now running on synthetic energon, they do have to worry about that. So it's kind of unfortunate at the moment. But again, Bumblebee gets his T-Cog back. Starscream doesn't lose his. As a matter of fact, when he feels the intention of betrayal upon Mech, he launches a missile towards the ground, which actually damages, and kills some of the Mech operative soldiers. But keep in mind, Silas still does have that burn across his face, as he does want Balerion. Now, let's go into the next episode, that being Loose Cannons. With Balerion there, this does mean that they could easily apprehend Dreadwing here. But again, we're going to have this episode actually play out the same, meaning that Dreadwing is now a part of the Decepticons along with Skyblight and Rampage. Next episode we have is Crossfire, where this episode normally would take place with Arachnid discovering the Insecticon. But I'm going to have this play about a bit differently. Balerion and Arachnid are out for one of their usual flies. However, this is where they actually see something. Two comets beelining it towards Earth. One white and one red. And Balerion senses something. Something very ominous about that. He can't put his words. He can't put it into words, but he knows something about these pods are just interesting, And this is what actually makes him draw towards these pods, or at least towards these comets, And when they crash land in an unpopulated area, or a forest, if you will. And when Balerion and Arachnid both look down from a nearby, I guess you could say plateau, if you will, they actually see that the two things to emerge are dragons, one red and one white. To which the white one, known as Frost, actually looks at her partner and states, "Are you sure this is the planet? There's never been a dragon here in ages." To which the red one, known as Crimson, simply looks at her and he states, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure. This is where the coordinates sent us, or at least the energy trail did. Lockdown went to this planet. And so right now, they need to find whatever's here and maybe, hopefully, get the Terratech's warp sword back. And this is where Balerion decides to make himself known and actually flies down to them, to which they're actually a bit shocked. They didn't think any other dragon was alive on this planet for centuries. And this is where he simply lands in front of them, and believe it or not, we get to see a sheer size difference. Balerion is bigger than them. Like, I wouldn't say massively bigger, but noticeably bigger. It's like a Megatron and, sorry, not a Megatron and Bumblebee, a Predaking and Bumblebee comparison. Yeah, so that dude is huge. And so this is where Balerion is simply taken aback, and he asks them, are they other dragons? To which Crimson is like, yeah, how are you alive? To which Balerion looks at him like, what do you mean by that? And Arachnid by this time does, kind of transform and lands down gently beside him just to kind of gauge the conversation. And this is where Frost simply states that the dragons on this planet have been extinct for years, like way past the dinosaurs. Like, they went extinct during the last ice age. They were hunted down to extinction, to which Balerion kind of looks at her and like, you realize I'm not a traditional dragon, right? To which they look at him like, what do you mean you're not a traditional dragon? So Balerion pretty much explains to them that he is a Cybertronian that was mutated into one. And so they kind of like, okay, so this planet still did have magic, even past its own, the dragon era and stuff like that. But apparently they still had magic. So believe it or not, they're not too... They're not threatened by him at all. They're formidable in their own right. And so this is where Frost simply explains that they're here for the Terratech's warp sword, to which Balerion does explain that is in the clutches of Megatron, and that right now they've been struggling against it. To which this is where they actually put two and two together and begin to explain how the Terratech's warp sword works, meaning that the user, or that Megatron himself, has found a way to fully bond his spark and basically his soul, essentially, is basically attuned with the warp sword at this point. So there's no way they could take it away from him. And well, right now, that means they have to obey their second alternative, to destroy it no matter the cost, or to destroy Megatron before he becomes a threat to everything they hold dear. To which Balerion actually offers them a chance to join him. And so the episode Crossfire just doesn't take place initially. However, when the dragons get back to the base and they're greeted and even welcomed by Optimus and the other Autobots, this is where they also explain their planet. They're under the rule of the Queen of all Dragons, that being Tiamat. This is where Crimson actually makes a fire-based illusion from his fire breath that actually comes out in the form of Tiamat. And well, she actually does greet the Autobots in a more, I would definitely say, a feminine and yet gentle like manner, if you will. And this actually pleases the Autobots that she is like this. However, this is where Frost pretty much interjects, is like, look, yeah, she's like this on a good day. Please don't catch her on a bad day. And this is where she actually acknowledges that Balerion being a dragon, and well, she wants them to follow him and him only, meaning that Balerion essentially has two dragons under his command, two powerful dragons. And well, believe it or not, that kind of goes pretty much the same. Now, what about the Insecticon hive? Well, believe it or not, they do get discovered. And I would actually say Arachnid feels it calling to her, feels something commanding her to come. And so she unintentionally or unconsciously plugs in coordinates to a location to where it actually brings her to a mine, and she is surrounded by many insecticons. However, the one who stands above them all is a crimson ant-like insecticon, his name being Inferno. And he simply states, Arachnid, such a wonderful time for you to join us. Maybe I could use you. You seem very deadly, very worth my while. So I like to make you a proposition. I want you to be my queen and help me command these insecticons. And that's where we're going to leave it off here, you guys. But hey, I want you guys to actually let me know what you guys think of this chapter. Let me know what you guys think of me introducing Inferno in such a way, and the fact that Megatron, or that, you know, the Autobots basically have 2 additional dragons onto their team right now. I will be covering the episode Nemesis Prime, but that is going to take a very, very different turn here. Like, I'm actually going to have Mech be a bit more of a threat, and then I'm going to be replacing the episode Grill, and then Armada is also going to take a very different path entirely. But that's going to be all today, you guys. Please comment down below, like and subscribe and share with your friends. This is Legendary Grimlock, and I hope you guys have a blessed day. Peace.